back to see tomorrow morning. The festival starts around 11 or 10, 11 o'clock. Hopefully you'll see it starting to be very close to the bottom. Just like that, all the way around. Again, coming to the bottom.
So they have this set up out front here where they're doing the charcoal making demonstration. And it goes through all of the steps.
Which he is now beginning to build the chimney.
Right. So the first step, of course, is getting the wood and splitting it. But then he is just now building the chimney. So if you look in this photo, that's what he's doing right now. And if you're interested in watching the demonstration, at 1 o'clock they'll be fire the pit, and then overnight they tend it, and then tomorrow they will rake the pit. And that will produce, from what I'm reading here, 200 pounds of charcoal, and then they sell it for a profit here to help with the volunteers of the Friends of Pine Grove Furnace State Park.
Any questions, just let us know, okay?
And as you can see, we're really working hard on getting that built up. A lot of steps in this process.
All we really do is make gas. Leaving the pit. 200, 500 years ago, they didn't use plastic bags, but we'll overlook that. If we were in the middle of the forest, the leaves would be around here, but with fuller field here, all we have is grass. So this is nice wet leaves.
No, mine are nice as well.
Some of them are pretty wet, some are a little. And the theory is that we throw this on.
They're really dry.
If you got a dry set, we'll use it later. Some of them are really wet.
Mine are really dry.
Okay, skip that for now. Best for the wet leaves. Watch out, guys. This is very gusty and it's going downwind. Of course, it's going to knock all the leaves off.
It's not an action shot. Together by pins, like plates.
We're going to light it around 1. And then from there, it'll slowly start to burn. We'll stay here and watch it overnight. And then around this time tomorrow, we'll rip it apart and you'll have the finished charcoal in there. And the charcoal is on what they use to feed the blast furnace. It was the fuel.
Okay.
Yep, you're very welcome.
About that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So the inside of this thing can get up to about 2,200 degrees, which is not hot enough to melt iron. You need to be about 2,800 degrees for that. But it is plenty hot to roast a person or so. So we have to be very careful with this thing. We never climb up on top of it. That's something they used to do historically. And one of these photos here, I'm not sure which one, shows a collier up on top of one and he has a shovel holding it like this. So that way if he's up on top of one of these things and he falls through, catch himself with the shovel, pull himself out. That kind of thing did happen historically, usually with really gruesome results I won't go into here. But the point is, it gets hot in there, very hot. So the color of the slag is actually dictated by what trace minerals are in the iron ore. And I've seen many different ones, and Pine Grove slag is very unusual in this light sky blue color it has. I'm not a chemist, but I've been told that what produces this particular color is actually, whoop, almost lost it there, a high amount of manganese, which was in the iron ore, and that produces the blue color. Some of the other colors have to do with it, like green here is usually a result of copper. A more blacker color is usually to do with carbon. A deeper blue could be cobalt and all that sort of stuff. But when you have ones that are with white like this is actually the limestone, which is the flux that they feed into the furnace that attaches to the iron, or well, the non-iron materials and pulls it off. And the reason it's always glassy like this is because majority of what is in here is silica. And when silica is introduced to temperatures like this, it turns to glass.
Right, exactly.
So some people actually call this stuff furnace glass. So the glassiness comes from the silica, the color comes from whatever else is in there. And back in those days, this was garbage. It was everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
Piles as tall as buildings of this stuff. And for whatever reason, nature really likes this stuff. Grass will cover it like so that you can't see any of it. There's nice little sloping hills around here that are just slag. That's all they are if you dig underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Important though, if you visit here though, don't take this stuff, because even though it is everywhere, it's still finite. You want to make sure that there's still some here for other people.
Collier Brett is pulling off the top pieces we call bridgeons to stop the dirt and leaves from falling in. There's a vertical chimney we've built there to let the fire in, which is just filled with small pieces of wood, top to bottom. So what we're going to do is grab several shovelfuls of embers from the cooking fire over there and drop them in and give them a few minutes until we clearly see that it caught fire. And then we'll put the bridgeon covers back on and put dirt and leaves on top of that. So the bridgeon is there really just to give us a hatch to let the fire in. That chimney is not especially to let smoke out. As this proceeds over the next 24 hours, the smoke just comes out through the covering all the way around on all sides. So using the word chimney is a little misleading. Let's do it.
Ignition.
Firing the pit. It'll take several shovelfuls. When they did full-size ones, I have to imagine it took a lot of embers to get them going. Alan, have you ever read about how many, the process, how many, because if we're only doing 2 or 3 for this tiny one, it must have taken a lot of embers.
Yeah, I think they would refer to it as enough. They would just keep doing it until it was enough.
That's the technical term?
Yeah, there's a lot of figures with this kind of stuff where it doesn't actually mean anything. The colliers would know what, like what is a bushel of charcoal? That depends who you ask.
That was really variable.
Yeah. How many shovelfuls does it take to light the pile? They just keep going till it's lit. Things like that. It's all kind of hand-me-down kind of knowledge. We're just sort of going with what we know works through experience.
The wind is interesting.
How much wood did you start with in the bottom of the pit?
Well, I'm not sure how we would measure it. They usually measure it in cords.
Yeah, maybe a quarter of a cord, maybe.
Okay.
This one's a little bit on the big side. So the wind is really, that's looking good. We'll see how
The wind is getting it, yeah.
the smoke comes out.
And if you're not familiar with what a cord is, a cord of wood is a stack of wood that has been cut, split, and stacked that is 4 feet by 8 feet by 4 feet. So that's a lot.
The smoke is increasing, so it's a good sign.
Yeah, the smoke is increasing. It's very good. One of the things is how the process of changing the wood into charcoal, how far that's gone. And there's a couple clues. As the smoke comes out through the sides, it goes all the way around, and it kind of gets lower and lower and lower. And when it hits the ground, they call that coming to foot. So when the pit hits the foot, the smoke is coming out from all sides, all the way down to the ground. That's a good clue that the entire thing is in the process of turning into charcoal. So here they're putting the bridgeons back on. And we're going to cover that dirt and leaves. The other thing we'll do is take the handle of a shovel or a rake and you just poke it through near the bottom. And if you hit a piece of wood, it feels different than if you hit a piece of charcoal. It's very hard to describe, but when you hit a piece of wood that's not yet converted, it kind of goes thunk. And if you hit the charcoal, it has this lighter feeling. I want to say it's a musical feeling, if that makes any sense. But you can just tell, okay, that's charcoal. We do that in a few spots around. It's like, okay, the outer edge at the bottom is the last piece to convert. So we'll be able to tell using tactile.
Example, this is still mostly wood.
I love it.
This is charcoal.
A little higher pitched, a little more, yeah.
It's much more hollow.
Yeah. That's good. We should do that again. That was
Just kind of hit me.
we're going to open up air vents, which is something I did historically. If it seems to be going a little slow, you let a little more air in. When you do that, you're sacrificing some of your product because we're burning wood for heat as opposed to letting it smolder in low oxygen become charcoal. So that's kind of a trade-off. Last year, we opened the vents very early. It was not windy like this so much. We opened the vents. We got a really, really hot pit. And we ended up making really good charcoal, but there was less of it. So some years we did 250 to 300 pounds. I think our record was 315 one year.
That was the year it hailed on us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a saying that the more miserable the colliers, the worse the weather, the better the pit. Because it helps, now that we've got it going, having a little bit of water on it, a little bit of wind seals it. So last year we opened it up deliberately because we had this problem 2 years ago. We made too many brands. Alan, do you have a brand over there? So a brand is what they called a piece of wood that was not fully converted. So as Alan's holding it, one end is clearly wood and one end is charcoal. We don't want that. You couldn't put that into the furnace and have it work very well. What did they do? Well, they would take them, when they got some brands, they would put them off to the side, stack them up, actually probably something more like what you see here, and recreate the process on a small scale, and that was called foxing the brands. So 1 year, well, it's pieces that are not quite done while you wait for the next Teamster's wagon to come get more charcoal. You know, you do a small version of this, 12 hours, 24 hours, so you don't waste your raw material. 1 year, several years ago, we did this demonstration. We had a fair number of brands. And I said to my team here, the Collier crew, I said, hey, let's fox the brands. We've never actually done that. So we set up a little extra one. It was only about this tall. And in the space of maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, it actually worked really well. The problem is they were getting surly after a full day and a half of the festival. Everyone was kind of tired, and I'm never going to ask them to do that again because I almost got kicked out of the park. They didn't appreciate the historical accuracy. But when we make too many brands, effectively we just save them and use them next year for campfire or something like that. What we did last year, again, was a slightly smaller pit, let in more air, burned more of the wood for heat, got a much hotter pit. It was obviously very hot. As that turns sort of bluish and oily, that's a sign that we're just barely beginning the pyrolysis process. That's the conversion, chemical conversion of the wood into charcoal. What you see right there, all the way around, you come back, say tomorrow morning, the festival starts around 11, if you're here 10, 11 o'clock, hopefully you'll see it starting to be very close to the bottom. Just like that, but all the way around and all the way down to the ground. Again, coming to foot. We're driving off all the stuff in the piece of wood that is not carbon, and you end up with turpentines and acetic acid and all stuff like that. That chemical smoke does not smell like a regular campfire. Chemicals being driven off of the wood in a pit like this, those chemicals had value. And before modern industry, chemistry depended on petrochemicals. Before that, you were getting your chemicals out of wood. So the wood chemical industry was a very big thing up until the 1920s, 30s. The very, very last chemical factories that used wood as the raw material were in, I think, of Michigan in the upper Midwest, where they had a lot of pine, and that was extending just a few years after World War II. There were very few of those still left. But prior to the 1920s, if you had various chemicals, the feedstock for a modern chemical industry, it all came off of wood. Just destructive distillation of wood is what we call it. And at some point, when they no longer needed as much charcoal because no one was running furnaces off of charcoal, they said, you know, we're going to optimize conditions and take the wood and get just the chemicals out. Capture that smoke, condense it, and you get huge amounts of, like I said, acetic acid, all sorts of chemicals that you can then convert into other things. The charcoal at that point became a byproduct. Right now, we're letting the chemicals dissipate. The chemicals in the smoke are the byproduct for us.
Alan, need you to come splash.
Do something like this, cover it. At which point, you don't really need the dirt and leaves. So now you do what we call a kiln or a retort. You basically pile up your wood inside a box, a really very big one, apply heat, and maybe you can apply the heat from the outside so you don't even waste any of the wood at all. It's a heat process, not a burning process, what we're doing. So the only reason we're letting oxygen in a little bit is to burn some of the wood to make a lot of heat. Above about 500 degrees Fahrenheit, this, a little more than that, it starts to become self-perpetuating, but we waste heat through the walls. So in theory, once you get it going, you don't need to let any oxygen at all, but in practice, like I said, we sometimes open up vent holes. So if you apply the heat from the outside, maybe you burn something else, natural gas, coal, junk wood, whatever, and heat up that giant box, the wood will convert to charcoal and you won't lose any of it. And when it converts, all of that smoke, you capture it in the pipe, cool it down, condense it, and now you've got gallons and gallons of useful liquids. It's in the smoke. And that's why, as this starts to get really going, that pyrolysis process, the wood to charcoal process, that smoke becomes this gray, oily, bluish gray kind of. We're not quite there yet. Most of this to me looks like it's pretty white, and that's still moisture coming off of the wood. That's actually showing charcoal furnace. All right, we're going to do rake out. So we lit this yesterday during the festival at 1 o'clock on Saturday. It's at 24 hours. If we had a longer festival, we'd maybe cook it for another day, but some of my crew need to go to work and we're all tired and cranky, so we're gonna do it now. 24 hours for a small one of these piles or pits. A really big one might take 2 weeks. The bigger it is, the longer it takes. We're gonna find out just how much charcoal we have. When it hits the air, when it hits all that oxygen, it's probably gonna flame. This is gonna be interesting because of how windy it is. And I gotta warn you, whoever's downwind, which may be all of you at various moments, there's gonna be dust and smoke coming at you. So just be ready for that. Okay? It's gonna be exciting. All right, let's do rake out. So as we do this, some of these pieces on the outside bottom didn't fully convert to charcoal. Like that one's a little bit of wood, a little bit of charcoal on the same piece. That's called a brand. You don't really want that if you're going to put this inside the iron furnace. Some of these outer pieces are still like, that's a brand. Got some flames here. Got it? So we started with, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a cord of wood, maybe a little more. And most years we end up with something on the order of 200, 250 pounds of finished charcoal, another brand. Our best year, I think we did 315 pounds. Last year we only did about 175, but we had really good conversion. We had no brands last year. All right, there's some nice charcoal. Look at the middle there. Woo! There's the smoke.
Yeah.
Smells hot. Yeah, it is hot. There's another brand. You see it's part wood, part charcoal. Okay. Now if you're raking out one of these really big ones, you see that sapling, 14 feet tall? If you're raking out a giant one, you don't do it all at once. You couldn't possibly control it. So they would do it in sections, kind of like the wedges of an orange. This one's small, so we're just doing it all at once. Woo! Nice charcoal there. Look at the flame. Now, Alan over there has a watering can. That's probably not too accurate because they didn't like to get water on it. If it gets wet, it may not burn hot enough when we put it in the iron furnace.
Your turn.
We don't like starting forest fires, so we cheat.
They would prefer to smother it with a little dirt, etc. Now what we're going to do with this is sell it. We're probably sold out already. We have a lot of customers who like to barbecue with this. They don't mind if it doesn't burn that hot because you don't want your hot dog at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice charcoal in the middle. Look at that. Oh boy. We're going to let it cool down. For the rest of the festival, we just have to watch it. With this wind, that could be a problem. We'll bag it up Monday or Tuesday. So we do have a clipboard over there. If you're interested, sign up and we'll make arrangements to get it to you in a few days. We're selling it real cheap, only $3 for a 5-pound bag. Nice charcoal in the middle, look at that.
Very good charcoal.
Fire.
Brands.
So, it's a small pile of charcoal. Whoa!
Big fire.
Water, water, water.
Big fire.
So that's not, you know, we can manage this. Imagine you've got a huge pile of this, and on a windy day it catches fire, it could be really bad. About 5 miles from here, Big Pond Furnace. Had been out of business a few years. They redid the whole place in 1880. On May 21st of 1880, they were about to start the furnace. They made some fresh charcoal. It was piled up. It was a windy day. Caught fire, destroyed the entire furnace. They never restarted. So this was a little hazardous. And especially on a windy day like this, you gotta be careful.
Fire.
Nice charcoal in the middle. Yeah, Diane's right. So there's a saying, the more miserable the colliers are, the better the pit is, the better the charcoal production. When it's kind of rainy and snowy, maybe early, that's actually good for sealing the pit while it's cooking. We have done this in the rain and the snow. It's not very much fun for us. Now,
Got white.
yeah.
Fire. Fire in the middle.
I'm out now. Yeah, some brands, but that's all right. Woo! Another little detail. Most of the crew have metal rakes. This one is a wood rake. It's not perfect, but it's a little more accurate. The old timers really preferred the wooden teeth, did less damage to the coal. But the truth is, at these old charcoal hearths in the forest, you do find metal teeth. So we know they used them, but I bet the younger kids were using the metal and the old timers would say, nah, it's better if you use wood. Another thing is you'll notice we have metal garbage cans and plastic bags and stuff. Obviously that's not authentic. They would do this in the forest, so there would be leaves and dirt. We're in the state park. We don't want to completely ruin Fuller Field here. We do kill the grass every year. I always feel guilty about that. But we have the dust and small pieces that we will save for next year's demonstration. That's what goes in the metal can. So obviously they didn't do that in the old days.
It's not melted yet.
How long's the pile lit? So the pit, the above ground pile of wood, historically it might take up to 2 weeks, like a really big one that's 20 feet across at the base, and when they raked it apart it might be 10 feet tall. It shrinks as it cooks. That's a huge volume, so that might take 1 to 2 weeks. It might even take them a week to cool it down and rake it out. Again, this one is small because it's a 2-day festival. We are doing it just to last 24 hours. These brands, these incomplete conversions, if we didn't have to be elsewhere, you know, if we could let this go another 12 hours, 24 hours, we would finish the job. For a demonstration, it's fine, not a problem. We'll use some of those pieces in our campfire. But we wouldn't want to sell those to the iron master to put in the iron furnace because he'd reject them. Those would not go hot enough in the blast furnace. So for the next couple of hours, we're going to have 1 or 2 people here keeping an eye on this. Because it gets windy, we could lose all of this in a fire. Just like happened at Big Pond Furnace in 1880. So it depends what you're going to do with the coals. If you're going to put them in a blast furnace like this, we prefer hardwood. This happens to be almost entirely red oak. The reason is hardwood is physically stronger. It's also dense energy. The carbon is exactly what we need. If you put soft charcoal, like pine, into a blast furnace, it creates a problem because it crushes. The bottom is not strong enough to hold up the many tons of iron and charcoal and limestone above it. So they preferred hardwood whenever they could. You can operate a blast furnace with softer woods, charcoal made from that, but it's problematic. If you're making gunpowder, you visit the DuPont facility, the historical area in Delaware State, they use willow twigs. I don't know why, but that charcoal from that particular type of wood suited their purpose. So it all depends on what your goal is.